Good evening and welcome back to another episode of FinTalk. I'm Renarda Joy, your host for tonight's conversation and for the rest of this series. I want to personally invite you, if you've missed any of our previous conversations, I want you to go back and listen to those videos. To make things easier for you, I've created a playlist. It's called FinTalk. This way it's easy for you to navigate so that you can see the videos. You'll hear how our guests not only gave us insightful insights, but they also gave us actionable strategies. My goal for this series is to arm you with tools and strategies so that you can achieve your financial goals. Now, as I mentioned earlier this week, I'm really excited about this week's conversation because it's all about real estate, which is my wheelhouse. Now, I get it. Real estate can be laborious because it does have a lot of moving pieces, but I promise you, if you break it down into bite-sized pieces, fill your knowledge gaps, get connected to a like-minded community or an individual who can support you, you too can soar with real estate as your wealth builder. Now, tonight, I have a guest who has some skin in the game when it comes to real estate, but first, allow me to read his bio. So Winston Templet is 56 years old and originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. He's lived in Nashville, Tennessee since 1990. He's been involved in real estate investing since 2006 when he purchased his first trailer park. Since 2006, he's been involved in over 400 properties and currently holding about 225 rentals and 12, yes, 12 active construction permits. His expertise is in land, development, construction, and rentals in residential, multifamily, warehousing, retail, and Airbnb. So you guys know we're going to be in good company tonight. They are a single family operator, and as of today, they have not brought in any partners or investors into their deals. So let's welcome Winston to the conversation. Welcome, Winston.
Thank you very much, Renata, for the invitation and the opportunity to be here tonight. It is a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Same here. Okay, so tonight, Winston, our title for this segment is Building a $50 million Real Estate Empire. So can you share your journey from moving out at 17 to building a real estate empire worth over $50 million? Like, how did we get here?
Just like you eat an apple, one bite at a time, and everybody thinks life is all success, all success, all success, but life is about failing forward. We're all going to fail, and we're going to fail over and over and over. And so many people fail and quit because they think that they failed. But that failure is just one more step to success. So would you like me to just share the story? Or?
Yeah, share the story.
So I grew up in a home that was a fairly abusive environment. And my dad came back from war, a different man, and led to a pretty rough childhood. And at the age of 17, I moved out of home. And when I moved out, I finished high school and graduated. But I graduated high school not being able to read. You could take a little simple book like Dick and Jane or something like that, and I could get through stuff like that. But to sit and read a book, I had never read a book in my life. I had never been able to do anything. I could get by on a, second or third grade level, probably in that area. So very minimal. So when I graduated high school, I went to work for a hotel and started off in their general storeroom. And about 9 months into it, I decided that I would join the Navy. So I joined the Navy, and when I joined the Navy, I got shipped to Great Lakes, Illinois in December of 1986. So I'm some coon-ass, and that's not a derogatory term. That's what I am. I'm from New Orleans. But I'm some coon-ass from New Orleans going to Great Lakes, Illinois in December. So if you don't understand stupidity, that is stupidity. I remember getting there, and some of the days it was like 40 degrees below zero with wind chill. Never experienced anything like that. But I had an issue with my hearing. So the Navy said I couldn't do the job that I wanted to do, and they discharged me because of that. So I got a medical discharge because of my hearing. And I came back home not knowing what I was going to do, and Hilton called me back, and they just asked me if I would come back to work there. I said, yeah. And they had a position in accounting. So I went in and I did accounts receivables, and then they moved me from accounts receivables to accounts payable. Then I went to inventory control. Then I went to credit cards. Then I went to a chief accounting clerk position. Then I went to an assistant two position, which would be third in line in an office of 60, 70 people. And I was young at the time. I don't know how I got through that fast. And then just something happened one day and I quit. I just quit. Didn't realize that I had the opportunity of my life right there in front of me. And then you quit at that time in your life. You're like, okay, what am I doing now? I'm, 21 years old. And, I thought I had skills that I don't really have. I'm in an environment that's teaching me, but I'm not there yet. So I made a decision to join the local 130 in New Orleans. And I was going to be an electrician, a marine electrician like my dad was. So I couldn't go back to work with them until September because I had to join the apprenticeship program and I had to be in school to do that. I didn't have a job, didn't have any money. And I answered an ad and I went up to Nashville, Tennessee to work for a construction company running their office. And I came to Nashville expecting to be here for a few months. And here I am 32, 33 years later, and I'm still here. And it's a cool journey because it didn't work out with the guy doing the construction. We just didn't see eye to eye on some stuff. And I'm very meticulous on overcharging or doing things like that out of the box. I didn't want to do that. So I left. And when I left, I went to work for a company that they were starting a facilities management company for restaurants. This is in 1991. So at that particular point in time, nobody was using facilities management companies for stuff like that. Everybody was just hiring their companies on their own. Now today, everybody does. It was a great concept. But 6 months into that concept, 6 months into that experience, the owner died. And nobody understood what was going on. Nobody understood the process that he was trying to do. And my wife at the time and I were already behind on some bills. We were living in a trailer up in a city called Westmoreland, Tennessee. We lived there for 2 years with no running water because I couldn't afford to dig a well. We lived there for 2 years with plywood over most of the windows in the trailer because they were broken out. The floors were so rotted out that the dog would stick his head up through the floor and look at you. I mean, that's how poor I was. And that was kind of the norm for me because that's how I grew up. So it really wasn't a big deal. It's just what it was. And when I stayed there for about 2 more months working after Mr. Bill had died, and I came home and my wife's car had been repossessed. So we were already behind on a note. Then we got more behind because I wasn't getting paid. And she caught me on the front step. She said, "You got to do something different than what you're doing." So I went in the next morning. I told them I was going to quit on Friday. And on Friday, they shut the whole company down, which is probably what needed to happen when Mr. Bill died because nobody had the dream he had. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, I went home. I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. And a guy from Hardee's called me up and asked me if I would start my own service company. And I said, "Service company? I do accounting." He said, "I need somebody that does service." I said, "I don't do service." He said, "Can you at least show up?" And I never understood that term. And here we are in 2024. I had a service company with 72 technicians. And I tell you what, in the end, can you just show up? It was everything in the world to get somebody just to show up. Right. And so I told him I could show up. And the next day, he sent me out on a bun toaster at a Hardee's restaurant. And I just never stepped on a piece of equipment I couldn't fix. And that was in March of 1992, I started that company. And I ran that company till 2019. We had 72 employees. And I sold that company in 2019. And I started real estate in 2006. And I was already probably from maybe 2014 on, 90% of my time was investing in real estate more so than in the company. So moving the company didn't make a big difference to me. It wasn't what I was doing anymore. So from there, I bought my first trailer park. I didn't have any idea what I was doing when I bought it, but I just bought it. And miraculously, it made money. Then I started buying some houses, and miraculously, each one of those made money. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a clue. It's kind of like 2021, 2022, 2020. You go in there, you throw a dart at a dartboard, and anywhere you stick that dart in that dartboard, you go invest, and you're going to make some money. That was what it was like when I did that. So that was coming through from 06 to 08, 09, and even further along. I made enough money with the company to float. I could go negative cash flow. It wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. But everything has changed now. I mean, we got to really get strategic in our investment ideas. So all the way to 2013, I had done really well, or 2012. In 2012, I bought 3 trailer parks in Russellville, Kentucky. And they were just drug-infested trailer parks, and I thought I could clean them up. And I didn't understand the power of drugs. I didn't understand the power of meth and things like that. And no matter what I did, I would invest money in them, and I would lose about $8,000 a month. For about 3 years, I lost $8,000 a month. I didn't know how to do the due diligence properly, so I didn't verify the amount of cost that the taxes were. I didn't verify how much my water would be, how much my utilities would be. I mean, I would have people that would rent a trailer and steal all the copper out of the inside of the trailer and go, and then I got to do all the electrical and do all the drywall again and panel and whatever was in it. So it was a really bad experience. So I went home one day and I got a call, and I told my wife, I said, look, I'm just going to sell the trailer parks. I'm going to auction them all off. They're all going in 30 days. I don't care what I lose. I didn't know any money on them, so I wasn't going to go negative on anything. I said, but I'm just getting rid of them. I don't care. And that's what I did. I sold every one of them, and every one of them brought just about exactly what I paid for them. So I lost the $8,000 a month for those 3 years. So it wasn't a great experience. And after that, I was sitting in my office figuring out what I wanted to do. And I had an Aflac guy come by one day to sell us insurance. And he did his presentation to my employees, and I was in my break room, and he came in there and sat down, and he said, Winston, he said, are you part of Rich Dad? I said, what's Rich Dad? He said, Robert Kiyosaki's group? I said, no. I said, I've never heard of it. And he said, well, they got a group of real estate investors, and they teach and they do training and all, but everything you're doing sounds like what they tell you to do. So he wanted to buy me the book. I said, no, I don't need you to buy me the book. I'll buy the book myself. And he said, well, I'm coming back tomorrow if you don't have the book. So I went and bought the book that night and let him know I had the book. And that was in December of 2013. And from December of 2013, so I learned to read when I was 30 years old in 1998. So
wait, say that again.
I learned to read in 1998 when I was 30 years old. Wow. That was when I took the leap and said, you know what, I got to do better than this. And I learned how to read. And I've been an avid reader since then. So in 2013, I bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad and fell in love with the book. And then throughout the month of December, I read all of Robert Kiyosaki's books, and I came to work on like December or January the 3rd, 4th, whatever it was that year. And I was looking for something else to read, and it came up that he was having a seminar in Tampa, Florida on real estate education. So I called my wife up. I said, I'm going to that seminar. Do you want to go? She said, no, we got kids. I can't go. I said, okay. So I booked a ticket and flew there the next day. And I attended his 3-day class, not realizing it was like going to a timeshare. You ever been to a timeshare presentation? Yeah, that was it. You talk about some good salespeople. Oh my goodness. But they had me hooked from the very beginning, because everything they were talking about, I had just lost a ton of money, and I wasn't going to not invest in real estate because I'd also had some good success in real estate. So I just needed to learn how to do it better. So I paid $40,000 for 8 classes, and I didn't ask any questions about the class. I just signed up. Well, come to find out, they would let me take each class 3 times, and come to find out the classes were never in Tennessee. So in order to go to classes, I had to fly somewhere else. I had to get a hotel room. So for the next 3 years, I flew every single month, just about, to a destination, and I attended one of their symposiums. And I grew my portfolio during that period of time about $9 million in that 3-year period of time. And that education that I got carried me to the next level. So people ask me all the time, do I need education? I said, you're going to get education. You're going to either pay for your education through some classes with somebody, or you're going to pay for your education through experience. But one way or the other, you're still paying for it. It don't come for free.
Winston, let me just interrupt, because we did get a comment. That's $40,000 is what you paid for the course?
8 classes, yes.
For 8 classes, okay.
8 classes. And I could take each class 3 times. And I did take each class 3 times. And I was inducted into their Hall of Fame in 2016. So when I was inducted into the Rich Dad Education Hall of Fame, now I could go to any of their classes anytime I wanted to, and for free. And we did that for about 3 more years. And they had sold out to somebody else and the quality went down, and I just did not agree with how things were happening. I thought students were being taken advantage of, and I just didn't want to be part of it. So I quit attending the events. But here today, I mean, it's just been the same thing. I mean, I'm an infinite investor. So my goal on anything I'm going to invest in, I want to know that within the next 24 months that I can pull 100% of my money out and have no money invested in that deal and still make money. And that is really a criteria that I use.
Okay.
And that's, a lot of people say they can't do that. That's fine too. It doesn't matter. As you grow and get better, you learn how to do that. And it's really not as hard as it sounds to get to that point.
Let me just get you to go back. You said so much.
Sorry.
How did you end up? No, which is good. Like it's good stuff. But your first investment, you said, was a trailer park. Why did you pick that for your first, and why in that particular area?
So I had zero interest in getting in real estate. My service company was successful and I was comfortable. And I had a guy that I went to church with, and he worked for me, and he just turned out not to be a very good technician. Good guy, couldn't fix nothing. And it just didn't work in my area. So one day he came to me, and I had moved him from the field into a sales position. He came to me and said, "This isn't working." He said, I gotta go. So he left and he started doing real estate. And when I say real estate, I'm talking as a realtor. He started selling real estate. And he called me up months later and he said, "I got this trailer park that came across the board and I think it's a really good deal. I think you should buy it." And I said, "Man, I'm not buying a trailer park." And he would reach out to me about once every 4 or 5 months and he would ask me to buy that trailer park. And it was like 2 years later that I finally was, I don't know if I was just irritating with him calling me, just saying, "I'm going to buy the trailer park to buy the trailer park." But I bought the trailer park. And I went into that trailer park and it only had 4 units rented in it. It was in rough shape. And I didn't put tons of money in it. They're pretty easy to fix. So I went in, I started fixing them, and we got them all rented. And then we're up to a $14,000 a month positive cash flow in probably less than a year. So with that, that opened up a door to say, wait a second, there's something to this. It gave me synergy a little bit with my service guys. If my guys didn't have anything to do, then I would just send them over there to work them because I was guaranteeing them 40 hours a week. So they would go over there and work, and we would go from there. Mm-hmm. So that was how the trailer park worked out. I also got that trailer park rezoned where I could put 215 condos on it. And then I decided to sell the project off, and I eventually sold the project off, and we did not do that. But one of our goals is I'm a big land development guy, so I like to, because I do construction, and numbers to go buy something right now for people that's in the real estate is hard. I mean, it is hard to go find anything that can make even a positive cash flow. Just a couple hundred a month is hard. Mm-hmm. So with interest rates at 8%, it's hard to do that. When they were at 3%, it was easy to do that. You could do it all day long. It was very simple. Right. Now I think that's going to turn around over the next several years, but it's not turning around this year, and I don't think it's going to turn around next year. I think we're going to have the same problems. So when I couldn't find a place to buy that made sense, I told my wife, I said, "Find me a lot. I'm going to build a house." She said, "Build a house?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "We don't build houses." I said, "We don't build houses right now, but I'm going to build a house." And she left, and then she walked back in my office a little while later. She said, "What is the goal with this house?" I said, "My goal with that house is to not lose any money." She said, "But how much we're going to make?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't care if I don't make a single penny off of it. I want the experience of building a house." Mm-hmm. I said, "So find me a lot." And she found me the most crappiest lot in the city, I believe. This is how bad it was. So this would have been 2016 or so. This lot was $6,000. Wow. So that tells you the quality. That's a quality lot if you can get it for $6,000. So, but it was a fun project, and we had about $125,000 invested in it when it was done, and we sold it for $220,000.
Oh,
So
wow.
we made $100,000 profit off of $125,000 or so investment, and it was a great experience. And since then, I always keep land development deals in, so I try to find a piece of land that I can buy at a reasonable price, but I can come in and subdivide it off and get multiple lots for that same price. So if I got a lot that I paid, or 3 lots that I paid altogether $100,000 to get all 3 of the lots, and then I rezoned it, and I was able to make it 5 lots. So I built 4 houses, and then I put 5 duplexes on it. So I got $100,000 invested in 9, or actually 10 doors on the duplexes plus 4 more. So we got 14 doors that I can spread that $100,000 worth of land cost across all of them. And that puts my land cost at virtually nothing. And that is the whole goal I have in land development and what I want to do with that. We do Airbnb also, and Airbnb is more my wife's passion than mine. I like the long-term rentals way more personally. I like the ability to get a tenant in there and not have them call you for everything. It seems like I don't want to pay somebody who'll clean it every time. And we got involved with that because I bought an apartment complex that needed a complete rehab, and I spent a year out of town. And my wife started Airbnb in our house. We lived in an 11,000 square foot house, and it was just me and her. So she started Airbnb in the house, and when I finished the apartment complex, she was making about $40,000 a month on the house. And I said, I can't live here, so I went and built the house somewhere else, and she just kept that as an Airbnb. And then we got a good offer on the house, so we sold it. But
wait, let me ask you, going into, now that we're digging a little bit deeper with your diverse portfolio, how did she and you, I would imagine, spot the opportunities in the short-term rentals with the Airbnb?
How did we what now?
How did you spot those opportunities?
So I have not ever spotted that opportunity. She spots that opportunity. So I don't, she had went to an Airbnb seminar that was offered with a person that we did some teaching with. And she went to that seminar and came back, and she said, I want to try an Airbnb the house. You're not here. And I said, okay. And she's a person that she puts her mind to something and it's just going to happen. She's going to go make it happen. And she started doing that. And then we picked up a couple more Airbnbs that we're doing. And then we Airbnb'd some stuff at the apartment complex. And now we bought another house maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that we're Airbnb. And some of the Airbnb is struggling right now. That whole industry is struggling hard. So right now she has 3 that she's doing. And, one of them is a house that I really bought that house because I wanted the land that was with the house. So I told her the other day, she's got it booked out till June. And I told her, I said, take it off of the market after June. And I want to go ahead and sell the house because I can sell the house for what we paid for it all. And I can keep the rest of the 12 acres of land, and we can do something with the land. And I'd rather do that as a deal, because the house half of the time doesn't cash flow and half of the time it does. So we're putting money in that house every year, and I don't need the house bad enough to keep putting money in it.
Right. And I can hear how the land development is definitely part of your wealth building strategy. You love to go after land.
That piece of land has an absolute incredible view. I mean, it is an incredible view. So I was going to subdivide it and put condos on it. I had a guy contact me and wanting to put a microbrewery on it, and I would be willing to do that as long as I can assume some ownership in that microbrewery. And so we're in a little bit of a negotiation thing right now. He said that give him a couple of weeks. He's going to come up here right at dusk, and we're going to sit on that hill, and we're going to have a glass of whiskey, and we're going to watch the sunset, and we're going to talk about the view. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. That's just, and for me, business is just so much fun. And that's what it's all about. It's we can make it as stressful and as hard as we want to make it, or we can say, you know what, this is what we're going to do. I am a goal guy on steroids, and goal is GOAL. I set goals for everything that I'm going to do, and I live my life 5 years in advance. I don't really live my life right here, right now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm always looking at what I got coming, and I pay attention to where I am now, and I don't try not to over leverage. I try not to overdo anything. And we're not leveraged. I mean, we're leveraged 23% right now in our total portfolio. Okay. So we're not leveraged a lot. We got plenty of room. And when I said I don't do anything that won't give me an infinite return in 24 months, I won't do that. That doesn't mean that I'm going to go pull all the money out of that project. That means I want to be able to pull that money out of that project if I want to pull that money out of the project. So I make my own decisions as far as that's concerned. But the goals keep me in check as to what I'm going to do. Now I'm 56 and none of our kids are invested in this business right now. None of them are part of it. And I'm going to reach a point probably by the time I'm 60 that if none of them are involved in the business, then I'm going to look at it and say, I don't know about quitting because what am I going to do if I quit? This is all I know to do and all I really enjoy.
And you love it. And you love it.
Yeah, I mean, I do work. That's it. So if I quit, but if I don't, all I'm doing is working for their inheritance. And I think they got enough inheritance. So I don't really know. Maybe I need to start working for charity and building something that I give away, you know, and we do a lot of that already, but we could probably do it on a whole different level.
Sure. Now, let me say this. I ran into some people recently who were trying to do real estate by themselves. And, you know, they're making rookie mistakes, costly mistakes. And I tell people real estate is a team sport. So I know creating a team is very essential. Can you describe and tell us a little bit about your team?
So in-house, I don't have a very big team. So I'm going to talk about my power team. My power team is I got a great accountant. I have I work with one title company only, so I don't let multiple people close my deals. I will walk away from a deal typically if somebody says I have to use their closing attorney. And I'll be like, I'm not using your closing attorney because I've had a lot of trouble using other people's closing attorney because you go in there 5 years down the road, you go to do something, you find out you got a problem on a title and these people won't fix it. So I use the same closing attorney every time, and they will do anything in the world for me. They will jump through hoops. We bought a neighborhood a couple of years ago that still had 4 years of HUD money tied to it, so we had to go through HUD on everything. And you talk about walking through a jungle of garbage to get through that program. It was crazy, but they did every bit of it. They took care of all of it. They got everything qualified. They handled everything for me in the end, and that was it. The neighborhood was bought. And, you know, so I appreciate the fact of dealing with the same people. I am a general contractor myself, but a lot of times I use other general contractors to do the projects for me because I subcontract everything out anyway. And I got contractors that have worked for me for 5 or 10% of cost. So if I can do a $200,000 house and it costs me, you know, somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 to pay somebody else to manage that project, and I'm not tied to that project in any way, I like that. I like the ability to not have to go and check on things. And I know the guys enough that I know they're not ever going to cheat me out of anything. They're not overcharging me on any bills. They're good people. And I would say that I wouldn't expect anybody to go out there and expect that to happen off the bat. You got to build that relationship because I don't think there's anything that we do that isn't relationship based. I mean, we definitely build relationships. And I have a drywall guy that I got a great relationship with. I got a framing crew. I got a great relationship. So we got all the crews with the subs that we have relationships with. And I don't go out and shop their prices after, you know, I've dealt with them for years and they already know. I mean, I know what it's supposed to cost and they just keep it in that range. And, you know, and if I need them, I mean, most of them I can call and say, hey, I need this done at my house. And they just go do it for free. They won't even charge me for it and just take care of it. So I think your power team is your bankers. You know, I got 2 different banks that I deal with and I can call those guys and, you know, the coolest thing in the world, I can call my banker and my banker will get in his car and he will come to me. I don't even go to him, you know, and that's a cool experience when they respect your business like that and you feel like you're not just a number anymore. And they will find ways to do things that other people don't want to do. So your bankers are important. Your real estate. I have a couple of real estate agents. Now we own a real estate company, but I don't sell real estate. We don't sell real estate. We are real estate investors. We have a real estate company because we are a real estate property management company also. So because we do in-house property management, we hold a real estate license. But I have real estate agents that I'll tell them, if y'all send me every deal you got if I buy one of your deals, it's going to be the first person that sent it to me on my email. And if you're the first person to send it on my email, you will be the one to get that contract if I buy it. And so even though they know that my wife's a broker and everything, they will still send me stuff because she doesn't even want to bother with the stuff that I'm buying. She just don't want to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. So a good real estate agent is always good. I think even meeting up and talking to wholesalers and talking to these, there's a lot. I mean, wholesalers are hit or miss a lot with me. I mean, some of them are coming in and they're wanting retail price for all of the garbage they're trying to sell you.
Because they don't understand.
Yeah, they don't understand what they're looking at. And some of them, you can talk to and say, look, this just isn't right. And you can talk them down and get it. But I'm just a numbers guy in everything that I do. And if my numbers don't make sense, I don't buy anything. And I don't buy off of emotion. I have almost zero emotion in buying any real estate at all. Mm-hmm. I want the numbers to work, and that is the most important thing. And I think when people fail, I think that's probably the beginning of their failure would be with the numbers, because they did not run their numbers properly. And it's easy to learn. I got videos on YouTube and different places you can watch and see me breaking down the numbers. And it's hard to get. There was a gentleman in Rich Dad Education, Rick Mariansky, who he was probably in his 70s back then. And I would go to his class, and I went to his class, and I was as lost when I left his class on running numbers as I was when I got there. And I attended his class probably 6 times through the years of going through their classes. And I would say when I truly picked up on his class was on the 3rd time I attended it. And so the first 2 times I attended it, he would talk about running numbers the whole time and run numbers the whole time. But I never walked away understanding the numbers the way I needed to understand numbers. I also did 12 weeks of coaching with him, and that's all we did for 12 weeks of coaching was run numbers too. But for me, I had lost a lot of money with those trailer parks, and I did not want to experience that again. And running the numbers is what I believe is probably fundamentally, it is the most important thing that you can do. And understanding your opportunity and understanding your opportunity loss too. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at at a deal and you're just bought and sold because the opportunity is so huge and you don't look at what the loss opportunity is. I mean, what if it all goes bad? What's the worst case scenario?
Right.
So, and I want to know, my worst case scenario is I get 100% of my money back and I don't make any money. I make no profit, but I don't lose anything either. And that makes me at least look at the deal and say, okay, the deal at least makes sense because I can't lose any money. And then I would start from there and say, what can I make off of it?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, but you should run some sort of simulation so that you can kind of do some sort of projections to see what's going to happen with your numbers. Numbers are everything when it comes to real estate deals.
Yeah, and people want to make them look as good as they can. They don't want to figure in a vacancy factor. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't figure in a vacancy factor, that house is going to come vacant. It may come vacant once a year. It may come vacant once every 2 years, once every 3 years. But if you don't factor in that vacancy rate and that house goes vacant for a month or 2 months, I mean, I got a house right now that's been vacant that has never been vacant before more than a couple of weeks. It's been vacant now for 3 months. Wow. If I didn't do a vacancy factor in there and I didn't realize the fact, hey, this could happen, and then you do the repairs to it, you got to pay for the repairs, and if you don't calculate all that in, they could eat up all your profits that you made for that one year that they stayed in the house, or that year, 2 years that they stayed in the house. It's not hard. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, when they rent your house, they don't take care. I can live in my house for the last house I lived in. I was in it for 14 years, and you didn't have to paint the walls. The walls still look great 14 years later. Somebody can rent a property from me that's been there for, a brand new property. 1 year later, they move out. I got to repaint every wall in the house. I'm tearing up I don't put carpet in anything anymore because I would almost tear it up between every 1 or 2 renters. Mm-hmm. And it was just a constant problem. So, we do a lot of ceramic, we do ceramic in some areas, but most of our new builds, I try to set them on a slab, and I will do a stained concrete with a nice finish on it. Mm-hmm. And they look great, and they're easy to keep clean.
Durability is good.
Yeah, if they have an animal in the house and it uses the bathroom on the floor, wipe it up. It's not going to soak into the concrete or hurt it. And people actually like the houses. So you start finding things like that you can do that'll save you on the other side on repair costs, maintenance costs.
I also find when people do their numbers, they forget to even include CapEx. Like those things will
Absolutely.
happen. It's so crucial, but I see a lot of people when I'm going through their deals, they don't have that included with their numbers.
Or they look at Zillow and or on one of the county sites and they see what they're paying for taxes and they use that same tax number, not realizing that when you pay twice with maybe the person had the house for 20 years and they appreciate it a little bit and the tax go up a little bit, it doesn't go up at market value by any means, not even remotely. So then you get your tax bill back and your tax bill is $2,000, $3,000, maybe even $5,000 more a year than what it was previously. And you didn't calculate that in and you got $200 a month positive cash flow. And now you're in a negative cash flow and you're going to be in a negative cash flow for a little while. You know, so it's all about those numbers going into it because and I think one of the issues with that, and people need to look at this real hard, is when you don't do all of your due diligence like that, what you're doing is you're putting your relationship with your wife or your husband in danger. Mm-hmm. I mean, money puts so much stress on a marriage and people lose their marriages because of money. And don't do that. Just don't. I mean, seek what you got to do to be able to get that. Find somebody that can help you run numbers. Find somebody that's qualified to help you run numbers because everybody isn't qualified. Mm-hmm. You know, I always, I use a management fee in every scenario when I run numbers. And even though I self-manage my own properties, I have employees that I pay wages that do that. I don't do it myself; they do it. So it's still costing me money. So I will throw an 8% fee on that, even on my own properties, and it stays in there. And for an individual out there that says I'm going to manage my own property, okay, that works out well until you fall and you hurt yourself.
Right.
And then your spouse is sitting there trying to figure out, okay, they were taking care of this. Now I got to take care of it. We don't have the money to take care of it. Mm-hmm. What do we do with this? And then you want to cover every scenario where worst case scenario, your spouse passes away and you can't function for the next 12 months. Can that property survive with you 100% out of the picture for that 12-month period of time? And I think that is something that people need to look at and say, you know what? I need to look at that. It should be able to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So just piggybacking on the due diligence part, there's some common investing risks that's associated with real estate. I tell people all the time, one of the ways to mitigate risk is to get educated. That way you can make informed decisions. But I want to know from your opinion and your experience, what are some common investing risks that you've associated with your real estate ventures, and how have you mitigated those risks?
So one thing I used to never do, I would never use I would never use a home inspector. I would buy a house and I would just do my own home inspection. I mean, I'm smarter than most home inspectors. But here's the problem. I'm not as diligent as most home inspectors. So I may know more than they know about what's going on, but I don't have a checklist I'm checking off. And I look at that house and I'm like, I ain't crawling into that house. I'm going to look at it with my flashlight. And so I bought an apartment complex. And when I bought the apartment complex, I looked underneath and it was wet underneath there. And I said, I'm not crawling into that house. So I sent one of my employees over. I said, go do an inspection right for me. Go look at it and let me know. And he came back and he said, looks great. Well, he did the exact same thing I did. He shined a flashlight in everyone in the house, but I didn't know that. So, or in that apartment complex. So I bought it. And come to find out, it was infested with termites. Come to find out, it had rot everywhere. So I bought the apartment complex at a great price, but I had to come in and do about a $2.4 million rehab where I was expecting to do a $600,000 rehab.
Wow.
So had I not had the resources to pull that 2.4 million, I would have lost what I paid for that apartment complex. I would have lost the whole deal.
Sure.
And I was going to raise the rents. At the time, they were renting. This is how bad the apartment complex was. It was a bad apartment complex, but they were renting for like $305 a month, and my goal was to do a facelift on it and rent it for $600 a month. but a facelift wouldn't cover it whenever we got into it because there was so much structural damage in it. So we couldn't do a facelift anymore. I can't just go in there and paint and put flooring in it and go. I couldn't do it. So we had to tear it down all the way basically to the dirt on every single building in there. And we had to replace all of the floor joists, all of the girders, all of the drywall, all of the plumbing, all of the air conditioning, all of the electrical, everything 100% got replaced. The only thing that stayed was the outside frame. And fortunately, I was able to raise those rents to $950.
Oh, wow. Even
and
more
because
than
I was able to, yeah. So because I was able to raise them to $950 because we made them extremely nice, that covered the $2.4 million that I had in it. And then once we finished it, and I paid cash for everything. So once we finished it, I didn't owe any money on it. And I was able to do a cash out refi immediately and pull 100% of my investment back out. So I didn't have any money invested in it. And it still makes, about $15,000 a month positive cash flow. And that was right out of the gate. So that's always our goal. Now we've bought, we bought neighborhoods, and I mentioned the HUD neighborhood I bought. So there was 4 years left on the HUD money for that, and HUD would forgive $323,000 a year worth of debt that was owed to HUD on that neighborhood. It was 41 houses, and they would forgive that for another 4 years. But I would have to keep it as a HUD property, and it was an income-based property. Mm-hmm. And it was built in 2011, and all brick homes, 1,300 square foot. All of them had one-car garages in it. Nice homes. Trashed on the inside because the guy didn't do a lot of maintenance. So we knew we had to do work, so we did a lot of work to it and have done tons of work to it. Mm-hmm. Right now, I have one vacancy in it, and we'll continue to hold that property until the HUD money runs out. When the HUD money runs out, because we make a little bit of money off of it every month. I don't make tons and tons of money off of it every month, but I do get $323,000 worth of forgiveness on my debt on that a year, which equates to about $8,000 a month per house, or $8,000 a year per house. Mm-hmm. So with that, it makes sense for me to hold it. But after it finishes with that term, what I will do with that neighborhood is break it up and sell it as individual houses. And I will be able to triple or quadruple my investment whenever I do that, because I bought them for about $70,000 a door.
Okay. And
what they are worth probably is about $300 right now.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be able to sell them. It might be, I got 2.5 more years on that. So by the time we're able to do anything on that, we may be at 325 or more, 350. And that'd be a huge return. And then we bought a second neighborhood it had already got all the HUD money going on it. And they built these neighborhoods in good areas. So they're not in a bad area, they're in a good area. So we bought another one of their neighborhoods that had 57 houses in it. And we bought that in last year, and it was built in 2006, and no maintenance since 2006, hardly at all. So we've been pumping, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We're probably well over $1 million now in what we've done in renovations on it, but we're going to renovate it and keep it like it is, maybe for a couple more years. And I'm going to find the right time in the market, and I'm going to start doing the same exact thing with that neighborhood also. I will sell those on a
one by one.
One by one.
So while we're talking about the HUD projects, this is your second one. Can you discuss the importance of diversification in your real estate investment? Like, what's your philosophy like? And also, is this your new strategy going after neighborhoods, in particular if it's HUD?
Well, I'm not really going after neighborhoods. The gentleman that I bought those two from has a third one he's going to sell, and we'll probably pick it up also. And I have phase 2 of one of those neighborhoods that hasn't been built out yet.
Okay.
So we will probably build out phase 2. Now, if HUD comes up with some money to put into the neighborhood, and what they came up with to build that neighborhood was $4.5 million, I think, or $5 million that they gave the builder to build it, but they had to hold it as a HUD property for 15 years. So basically, they control the rents on the property for the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep it where you make a little bit of money, but you're not making tons of money. Your money is coming in the debt reduction. And so I don't know. I may go after something, a HUD grant, some grant money or something like that to try and build it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but we will probably build that second phase out. And I own an apartment complex that adjoins to that neighborhood also.
Okay.
And so I may go behind that and build townhomes when I sell it, and when I build the townhomes, then I could put in maybe a pool, and I can put in a rec center, and I can do some amenities that would benefit all three of those properties that I own at one time if I was going to hold them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're up in the air. I mean, I got an idea of I'm gonna do this right here, but that idea, it's not locked in, and I'm gonna base everything off of the numbers, and we're gonna look at it and say what works best for us.
Love it. So as someone who's achieved remarkable success with real estate, let's say we have some aspiring investors that are listening tonight, what's some advice that you would give to them? Because I remember when I got started, without even dating myself, YouTube didn't even have a curriculum. So what would you say to aspiring investors that are listening? What's some advice you would give to them?
So one thing that we need to talk about is, my first advice is their numbers have to work. No matter what, I don't care what you're going to invest in. You can invest in commercial, residential, you can invest in Section 8, you can invest in whatever you want. But if your numbers don't work, the numbers don't work, walk away from that deal every single time. And I'm not talking your numbers barely work. They need to work where you make money. And I don't think you fall in love with anything. You don't fall in love. I'm only going to do commercial. I'm only going to do residential. I'm only going to do multifamily. Don't fall in love with that stuff. Do what makes the most amount of sense, because everything, real estate is very fluid. It's always changing. Nothing stays the same. Where, office space was really a big thing 7-8 years ago. Right now, you can't sell office space.
Right.
The retail shopping centers and stuff were a whole lot better 7 years ago. Now, a lot of people are struggling to sell those. You can't sell a shopping mall hardly, because people don't want to buy it because nobody goes to them anymore. Everybody buys their stuff online. So I think one thing is you pay attention to what's coming 5 years down the road. You pay attention to what's going on right now. I listen to at least 3 or 4 podcasts from different real estate people that I like and I trust every day. And I like to do that. And I keep myself sharp, and I try to stay ahead of the game as to what's coming. I think that, one thing, I have people ask me, hey, do I do Section 8 housing? Mm-hmm. I said, if you want to do Section 8 housing, do Section 8 housing. Well, is there a lot of trouble with Section 8 housing? I said, well, Section 8 housing may present more trouble than if you go to a Class B neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I said, but if you go Section 8 housing, a lot of times if you manage it properly, you can make a little bit better return on your investment. It's a little more active income in there because you got to pay attention. You got to be on top of it. But as long as you're on top of it, it works. One criteria we have is our credit scores. We do not rent, even in the neighborhoods that are HUD run. If they do not maintain a 630 or better credit score, they don't rent from us. Because in our experience as landlords, if you have a 400 credit score, we're getting screwed in the end. Eventually, we're getting a punch in the throat, because when you bring people in that don't care about their credit, they don't care about their credit. But if you got somebody with a 630 credit score, they typically, hey, I want to be able to buy a new car. I want to be able to buy a new house down the road. I want to be able to do this. And they're always paying attention that their credit score doesn't drop, because it's hard to rebuild it. So those people seems to always do a lot better to rent. So we always try and watch the credit score. We pay attention to who they are. We will investigate them as best we can. We may pull them up on Facebook. We may see what their life is like. And, I'm going to pay as much attention, and I'm going to get as much information on those people, regardless who you are renting from us, so that I know I'm putting a good tenant in it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really matter what kind of property it is, is 10 houses in a townhome with a townhome environment a better investment than 10 regular houses spread out? Sometimes it is, but that doesn't mean it always is. Right. Is it easier to maintain? It would be easier to maintain because everything's in one area. Mm-hmm. But, you got to look at everything around. And your real estate from one side of the street to the other side of the street changes. So we can look at everything from a macro standpoint and say, man, everything is good. But then you bring it to a micro standpoint and you say, well, everything's good. And I'm 20 miles outside of Nashville. Everything is good in Nashville. Well, that's
Right.
fine, but I don't live in Nashville. So what is it like where you live? Well, I'm right by Hendersonville. Hendersonville's got a lot of expensive houses, so it's good. Well, no, you're not in Hendersonville though. And it's dissecting that deal down. You got one side of the road that goes to a certain school, and the other side of the road may go to a different school district. And one school district be exceptional, and the other one not be so good. And the houses in a not so good school district won't sell as fast. They won't bring the same amount of money, and it's going to be different. So you got to pay attention. People look at it and say, well, that house sold for $200,000, so this house is going to sell for $200,000. Not necessarily. So due diligence on all of that, and just don't take anything. You got to take the emotion out of your real estate. You can't be emotional. You got to be able to look at it and say, you know what, this is our criteria. And no matter what, this is our criteria I'm sticking to. So how do I do that? I am a sucker. If somebody gives me their hardship story, I will break and I will rent to them. So I am not allowed to talk to any tenants. and I will tell you that I absolutely never, ever talk to any tenants. You will go a whole year, 2 years, 3 years. I will not talk to a single tenant in that amount of time. And I don't do that because my wife says you're weak. And you will cave and you will give them what they want. And what I did, because we worked together before she became my wife, and I gave her a criteria. This is what I want. And don't question me on it. You just do that no matter what. Don't ask me if I want to change my mind. You do what I tell you. And that's what she did. And that has been successful. So even the other employees we have in our office now, this is the guidelines. They don't change. And it keeps you out of trouble too. It keeps you from with Fair Housing Act and everything else. This is the guidelines. It doesn't.
And you're not working off of emotions either. That's the whole thing. You're not working off of emotion.
I mean, everybody's got hardship stories. We all do. I mean, we all got something that we can look at and say, you know what, we're just struggling because of this. It's temporary. Well, your track record says it's not very temporary because you've been getting collections for the last 6 years. So it gives you the opportunity to just pay attention.
Yeah, good stuff. So what's one key piece of advice that you would just say to anybody for encouragement? Like, I got what you said for the advice for real estate, but just give us one of your, because speaking to you offline, you have many advice. So just give us one. I
think that number one, we want to love what we do. And if you don't love what you do, don't do it. If you get into real estate and you do it for don't quit the first year, give it a few years. And learn a little bit, because it does take a little bit of education to get it right. But if you don't like it, don't do it. But if you love it, then do it with everything that you are, because it is such a wonderful type of way to make passive / active income, because there is no passive hardly. I mean, you almost got to buy a Dollar General store for a 5 cap, and that's all you get for the next 20 years, but you don't have to do anything. So everything takes a little bit of work, but it shouldn't take a lot of work. And just be passionate about what you do. I think we treat people right. We don't ever rip people off. We don't do things unethical, and always be able to hold your head up high. And, we run into all kind of crazy stuff, and I just never worry. I mean, we're battling with some of our city council people right now. And I don't really care about that. They have tried to find stuff on me and dug, but there's no skeletons in my closet. Mm-hmm. So I live my life just like I live it, and it is what it is. And I love the fact that I can be me and I have nothing to fear. So be true to yourself, invest your money accordingly, and understand that it is a learning process and it is a journey. But at the end of the journey, and real estate is not a short-term investment. Real estate is a long-term investment. It's not how much time it takes you to do that job. It's how much time you got in that whole project. I'm talking about maintaining it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. I got a piece of property we just sold the other day that I bought about 8 years ago. We sold it at a 700% profit from what I bought it for.
Wow, 700?
700. And I have had numerous deals like that I've made 700. I've made more. I got a piece of property that I bought for $114,000 that I turned down $13 million on, or $3 million, not 13, $3 million on, because it's right by the interstate. It's going to be a better deal, and I've only had it about 7 years. I mean, we haven't even had it that long. And it really is time in the market with that. And if people would understand this, it is not everybody. I mean, these influencers out there, it's so depressing to listen to someone talk about how all you got to do is this right here, and you can retire in 2 years. You know, you can do this in 5 years. And it just really, I'm not going to say it doesn't work that way for anybody, but it doesn't work that way for most people.
Yeah.
And if you go there with the attitude of, I'm going to do this really hard for 2 years and then I'm not going to work anymore, it's probably not going to work out well for you. I think you got to put your long-term goal in there. Hey, I'm going to do this for the first 5 years. Then I'm going to do this for the second 5 years. At year number 10, I'm going to be here. Then I'm going to do this for the next 5 years. And you can slowly start backing out probably a little bit after year number 10, because you should be able to diversify and multiply what you have done over and over and over again. And it's easy to lay out and get you to a $10 million portfolio in 10 years. It's not hard to do, but it does take a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Well, Winston, as we get ready to wrap up this enlightening conversation, like you've given us a lot, you know, some of the key takeaways I wrote down was it's important to do your due diligence, know how to run your numbers, and take action. I love how you said you got on that plane and you ain't to Florida. That's you making an investment in your knowledge and your long-term plan and just being able to work through it. Like, you never know. Sometimes you have to do things even when you're afraid. But as long as you have your power team to support you, you can make it on the other side. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do your due diligence. Do your due diligence and know the worst case scenario. And if you can live with that, what can hold you back?
I love it. Now we have an exciting opportunity for our viewers. Winston is generously giving away 2 free tickets for 2 couples to attend his upcoming real estate event. This is an incredible chance for you to get a deeper understanding into real estate. Winston, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your upcoming event?
So I'm passionate about real estate and I'm passionate about education. And coming from where I come, I didn't get where I got by myself. I got where I am. I worked hard, yes, but there was always people behind me, always people support me, always people giving me advice, willing to lend a hand if I needed something. And so now for me, life isn't all about making money as much as it is making the money, but giving it back to people, also giving it back. So I want to offer 2 free tickets for a seminar that we're doing. We're doing 4 seminars this year, and it's 3 days long. So they would have to buy their travel here and stay in a hotel, but we're going to do 3 days worth of education talking about real estate. We're going to talk about how to do your numbers and do them correctly, how to understand that properly. That would take me about 3/4 of one day to do. And I'll make it fun. And I'm not a speaker that holds the floor. If somebody's got a question, I want that question asked right now. And I want to talk about it because somebody else might be sitting there holding that in and not being able to get it out. So I want to talk about it. So I want to do that. Then on the second day, we're going to start talking about, and at the end of the first day, we're going to start talking about why should you get invested in real estate? What type of real estate should you get invested in? Where to find your passion, how to figure that out. We will typically bring in a speaker that will talk about maybe wholesaling and how to hook up with a wholesaler, how to talk about them. We'll bring in a banker maybe and let them talk about how to do loans and how to get that, how easy it is to deal with that. We're going to talk all on day number 3. We're going to talk about land development, how to put a land development deal together. And when I'm talking land development, I'm not talking about a Kroger and a strip center like that. I'm talking about one piece of land that you can build 5 houses on, one piece of land that you can put 10 townhomes on, or even a 60-unit, 100-unit apartment complex is easy to do too. It's the same concept. So it's something that's not over anybody's head, but it opens up a lot of different doors for people to be able to think through what they're doing and what's going on. So our whole goal through the 3 days, people will come here. I will supply all of the food. We'll have something trashy for breakfast, like donuts, something very unhealthy. And then we will bring in and we'll do lunch, and we will take care of lunch. And then whenever we send them home, they take care of their own dinner. But we provide breakfast and lunch so that people come in and they're comfortable all day long, and they don't have to worry about leaving my office to go eat or anything. We got a banquet room here. We do everything in, and it's just make it a really learning experience. And it is cram packed of education the whole time. There's There's not a lot of fluff anywhere. It's just education. I try to be as fun as I can be. I got an awkward sense of humor, so some people get offended with it, but you just got to let it roll. It's okay.
No,
But
I love
it is
your
what it is.
humor. So there you have it. Now to win, simply send an email. Let me give you guys the information. You're going to send an email to hello@renardajoy.com. And what we want you to do is put in the subject line real estate event giveaway and tell us why you're eager to attend Winston's event. And we'll select the winner, and I'll make sure that we announce it at our next episode. Speaking of, before we leave, be sure to tune in and mark your calendars because we'll be back on Friday for another exciting conversation. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you can get all of the notifications. I want to thank you, Winston, for joining us tonight and giving us all of your invaluable insights and your gems and just your experience. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So until next time, keep pushing your dreams. Your determination will get you there. See you soon.
Thank you.